What is up, guys? So for this video I want to further discuss and analyze the flashback cold opening scene that was displayed in the 5th episode of season 4 of Better Call Saul, entitled Quite a Ride, that featured Saul Goodman during the timeline of Breaking Bad making his final arrangements to flee Albuquerque. Okay, so this cold opening scene from episode 5 of season 4 presented us with the scene that was teased would take place during the timeline of Breaking Bad this season, which displayed a scene of Saul frantically packing and gathering his belongings prior to calling the vacuum cleaner repairman, i.e. Ed the Disappearer, to notify him of his request for his services in order to flee Albuquerque and assume a new identity, while Francesca simultaneously shred a large number of documents in his office. So with this background information about this flashback scene in mind, before we take an in-depth look at all of the intricate and subtle details that were present in this opening scene, I first want to go back to the plot of Breaking Bad in order to provide a general context of when exactly this flashback scene took place as it pertains to the overall timeline of Breaking Bad. Okay, so due to the fact that Saul Goodman was wearing the exact same outfit in this flashback scene that we saw him wear in the plot of season 5 of Breaking Bad in the episode entitled Granite State during his arrival to the vacuum cleaner repair store, we know that this flashback scene took place immediately prior to Saul arriving there in the same episode. Furthermore, during this scene where Saul arrives to the vacuum cleaner repair store, what is very notable about Saul's dialogue in this scene is that following Ed the Disappearer stating to Saul that he would be sharing a room with Walt during this disappearing process, this was then met by Saul stating to Ed, "Oh yeah, he's still here?"
Only thing is, and I don't like to do this, but you'll have a bunkmate.
Oh yeah? He's still here?
For the moment. It's a special case, and it takes some doing.
So with this context in mind, while we cannot know for certain how long of an amount of time Walt was at the vacuum cleaner repair store prior to Saul, due to the fact that Saul was aware that Walt was already at the vacuum cleaner repair store, I think we can infer that Walt spoke with Saul on the phone at some point in time following the events that transpired in the desert in the episode entitled Ozymandias, and prior to his arrival to the vacuum cleaner repair store, and told Saul about the death of Hank and Steve Gomez, which as a result made Saul realize that he too had to immediately make his arrangements to flee as well. However, due to the severe lack of concrete details regarding the plot of Saul Goodman between the last time we saw him in the plot of Breaking Bad at the car wash with Walt in the episode entitled Tahajali and his arrival to the vacuum cleaner repair store, the exact details regarding the precise chain of events immediately prior to this flashback opening scene, including the question of when precisely Saul made the decision that he would need to frantically prepare to leave Albuquerque and what precisely caused him to do so, are as a result, at this point in time, left to rampant speculation. So with all of this information about this plot in mind, now that we have a very broad general context of when this flashback scene took place in the timeline of Breaking Bad, this then brings us back to the details and dialogue that were present in this flashback scene of Saul Goodman in episode 5 of season 4. Right off the bat, from a production point of view, I really enjoyed the decision by the creators of Better Call Saul to shoot this scene with a film camera as opposed to a digital camera, which as a result made this flashback scene resemble a scene that was taken right out of an episode of Breaking Bad, which was shot on film, as opposed to Better Call Saul, which is shot on digital. That being said, in regards to the specific actions and dialogue that took place in this flashback scene, one very noticeable and significant action that Saul did in this scene was break open a panel of his wall in his office and obtain a shoebox that was hidden behind this panel. While the contents of the shoebox were not displayed to us in this scene, based on the opening scene of the very first episode of season 1 of Better Call Saul entitled Uno, which displayed a scene of Gene at his home in Omaha, it appears that this shoebox that Saul obtained from his office in this flashback scene in season 4 was the same shoebox we saw Gene look through in the opening scene of the first episode of season 1. So if we look closely at the contents of the shoebox from season 1 of Better Call Saul, while the shoebox appeared to be mostly filled with old personal effects and mementos, including the Band-Aid tin we saw during the flashback scene in season 3 of Better Call Saul in the episode entitled Slip, as well as a VHS of Saul Goodman's commercials, we can also see what appears to be a passport for Panama in the shoebox as well. However, all of that notwithstanding, the question still remains of why Saul felt the need to hide this shoebox behind a wall in his office, which I think as a result could mean there is something more significant about this shoebox than just it containing some old personal belongings, which I think the passport for Panama in this shoebox also seems to indicate. Moreover, another action by Saul that also stood out in this scene was the business card for a lawyer that Saul provided to Francesca to represent her when the police come talk to her due to her association to him, which was then followed by Saul stating to Francesca to tell this unknown lawyer that Jimmy sent her. So while we can only speculate who this lawyer might be, I also wonder if there will be any significance to who this lawyer is in this flashback scene in regards to how this lawyer knew Saul in the past as Jimmy McGill prior to him assuming his professional role as Saul Goodman in the plot of Breaking Bad. In addition to these two scenes, another piece of dialogue that also stood out about this flashback scene was the question that Saul asked Francesca regarding where are you going to be on November 12th at 3 o'clock, to which Francesca responds, I'll be there, but if it doesn't ring at 3 on the dot, I'm gone, to which Saul responds, don't worry, it's gonna ring. So taking all of these vague details about this dialogue into account, while we can only speculate on the meaning behind this dialogue, it seems likely that Francesca is supposed to be at a payphone on this day that Saul mentions in this scene for the exact reason we are only left to speculate. As a side note, after this confirmation to Saul's question by Francesca that she would be at this location at this time Saul stated to her, this was then followed by Saul realizing that all of the formalities of this fleeing process had been taken care of, and all that was left to now do was call the vacuum cleaner repairman, which was then followed by Saul stating to Francesca, quite a ride, huh? So with this dialogue being taken into consideration, in my opinion, I think this short quote by Saul in this scene really seemed to be a short bit of reflection that summarized everything that had transpired over the course of Breaking Bad, in addition to everything that will transpire in the future over the course of Better Call Saul, and my read of this dialogue by Saul in this scene is that at the time, Saul really meant what he said, and in spite of all that had happened during his time as a lawyer, I think he really did enjoy the ride and the high of being a criminal lawyer and everything this had brought him in life. Furthermore, as an additional side note, following this quote by Saul, this was then followed by Francesca leaving Saul's office to dispose of the documents she had shredded, and Saul then calling the vacuum cleaner repairman in order to make his arrangements to flee Albuquerque, which was notable due to the fact that Saul stated that he was red hot, which as a result alluded to a scene that took place in Season 5 of Breaking Bad in the episode entitled Confessions, when Saul made a phone call to arrange for Jesse to leave Albuquerque, to which Saul stated that Jesse is only a little hot due to the fact that he is currently out on bail.
I need a new dust filter for my Hoover Max Extract Pressure Pro Model 60. Can you help me with that? Yeah, pick up. He's hot. Not hot, just a little hot. Currently out on bail.
Which I think as a result further seems to allude to the fact that during this flashback scene, Saul knew that if he did not flee right now, the police in short proximity would come to arrest him for his connection to Walter White. And with this context in mind, following this phone call with Ed the Disappearer, this scene would then culminate with Saul hanging up and breaking his phone in half. Moreover, as another side note, due to the fact that based on the plot and dialogue of Season 4 of Breaking Bad in the episode entitled Crawl Space, we know that at this point in the timeline of Breaking Bad in Season 4, Saul did not know the name of this disappearer.
But this is a vacuum cleaner repair company.
What'd you expect? Haji's Quick Vanish? I don't even know the guy's name. You just call that number and you leave a message. You tell him that you need a new dust filter for a Hoover Max Extract Pressure Pro Model 60. I wrote it right on there. He'll call you back in 5 minutes.
We, as a result, know that Saul met Ed for the first time when he finally used his services to flee Albuquerque for good in Season 5 of Breaking Bad in the episode entitled Granite State following this flashback scene.
It's an actual store. I guess I figured vacuum cleaner repair was a term of art.
So as a result, we'll be very curious to see if we eventually at some point in time discover in the plot of Better Call Saul who originally introduced Saul to this man's services and what was the context of Saul learning about this man as well. So with all of these subtle and intricate details about this opening scene being taken into account, the overarching questions remain of why was this scene placed in this episode at this point in time in the plot of Better Call Saul, and why was all of this aforementioned open-ended dialogue placed in this scene as well, which based on the literary dramatic principle of Chekhov's gun, in the name of good storytelling, needs to be necessary and relevant to the overall plot of Better Call Saul. So with this premise in mind, while at the end of the day, the possible purpose of this opening scene appearing in this episode of Season 4 of Better Call Saul could have been to juxtapose the very last time Saul would use a burner phone with the genesis of him first beginning to use burner phones in the plot of Better Call Saul, I will still nonetheless be very interested to see if there will be another reason for the presence of this scene in the plot of Better Call Saul that will be displayed to us at some point in time in regards to this scene's mysterious and ambiguous dialogue that could hypothetically become an integral part of the plot moving forward in Season 4 of Better Call Saul and beyond. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video and want to see additional analysis of the current 4th season of Better Call Saul, then make sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any new videos where I discuss and analyze the plot of Season 4. As always, my name is Anton Jackson. Thanks again for watching.